Good afternoon, class.
Afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at job costing this evening. We finished budgeting, but probably just before we move on to job costing, I could probably ask the question, are there any questions arising from the problem we worked yesterday evening that you want clarified? Last week that you want clarified? Any questions? No questions? Well, so we can move on then to job costing. Okay, the question is landlocked limited. And so one of the things we're doing, we're costing a job. We're costing a job. Now, why would we want to cost a job? Because we are ultimately going to gain revenues from the job. So in order to gain revenues, we need to know two things. We need to know what is the cost of the job, and then we decide what the profit on the job is going to be. And then the sum of the cost plus the profit, we call it markup, that will give us the price of the job to our customers. So cost plus markup is equal to job price. Cost plus markup is equal to the price of the job. So let's start at the beginning. Cost. What are the constituents of cost? For our purposes, there are three components to cost. And I want us to take down these three components of cost. The three components of cost would be direct materials, direct labor, and then overheads. Say them again: direct materials, direct labor, and overheads. Now, how do we compute the overheads that we're going to be using as a part of our cost? Overheads will be given as the actual activity level associated with the job, the actual activity level associated with the job, multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate. The predetermined overhead rate. Now, the predetermined overhead rate, a formula drives it. A formula drives it. The formula that will drive it is the estimated overheads. The predetermined overhead rate is equal to the estimated overheads divided by the estimated activity level, divided by the estimated activity level. Let me say that again: the estimated overheads divided by the estimated activity level. That's a predetermined overhead rate. Now, let us pause a while, everyone, and let us look at landlocked limited. And I'm going to ask you to come up with the predetermined overhead rate. Come up with the predetermined overhead rate. We're going to have one rate initially, and then later on we're going to calculate two rates. So when we have one rate, we call it a plant-wide rate, and we're going to merge the estimated overheads for the two departments by adding them together. And of course, the activity level will be added together. So we need to see what makes up, what constitutes the activity level in the particular problem. And in this problem, they say that direct labor hours, estimated overheads and direct labor hours for the year are as follows. So your activity level will be based on the direct labor hours. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to calculate. I know you have the solution, but you will be cheating yourself if you look at the solution and not try to work it initially. Calculate your single overhead rate. That means you're going to combine your overheads for the department and divide it by the combined activity level. Right? Combining, we mean we're adding them together. So work that out for me, please, to get your single overhead rate for Landmark Limited, and then we take it from there. When you have calculated that, just indicate and just indicate.
Yeah, finish, sir.
In the chat. Okay, so that's one person finished. We want to give a few more persons a chance. Let's say we give them another, say, 3 minutes, and then we are good to go. Okay, let us see what we got. Okay, so the formula is estimated overheads. And we will note that the overheads for fabrication is $20,000. And for painting, it's $36,000. So we're going to combine those two. We're going to sum them. And we'd have arrived at 56,250. Is that what we got, class? 56,250?
Yes, sir.
Sir. Sir.
Yes. Any questions? Are we there? Donna, are you with us? Is Donna Brown present?
Yes, I'm here, but I just joined, so I'm just trying to follow you at the moment.
Okay, I'll get back to you. Natanya?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what did you get for your overheads?
Sir, the 56,000, sir. 20,000 plus the 36,000.
Sorry, say that again.
Sir, the 20,000 plus the 36,000.
I'm not seeing 36,000.
36,250, sorry about that, sir.
Yes, okay, yes. Right, and when you added that, what did you get?
1 second, let me. 56,250, sir.
Okay. Now we're going to divide that by the estimated activity level. Your activity level will be measured in terms of machine hours or direct labor hours. The question will tell you what it will be measured in. This question was specific. It said that it's measured in direct labor hours. Did it not say so?
Estimated direct labor hours. Yes, sir.
Okay. Estimated overhead and direct labor hours for the year are as follows. Okay, so it gives you the direct labor hours. So the estimated 15,000 when we add that up, 10,000 from fabrication plus 5,000 from painting will give you 15,000. So your predetermined overhead rate, and I say a single, so when you say a single, you have to sum. So $56,250 divided by 15,000 direct labor hours would give us $3.75 per direct labor hour. So we have to specify that the 15,000 is direct labor hours. So we want to just note that our 15,000 will be defined as direct labor hours and the dollars must be put in. So I would get 0 for what I'm doing right now because I didn't write 15,000 direct labor hours. And then of course it will be not just $3.75, but $3.75 per direct labor hour. 17 students had to repeat the course 1 year because I left that off. You hearing my class? Nobody hearing? It's important to hear these things, you know. Okay. So we have that right there. Are we clear on that, class? How to calculate the predetermined rate? Trisha, are you with us? Giovanni?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Trisha, you're not with us?
I'm with you, sir. I think that was Donna.
Okay, Donna?
Yes, sir.
Okay, proceed with that question.
Sir, you asked if we're clear on how to calculate the
predetermined overhead rate.
right, and I said no.
Okay, what is your question? What you're not clear on? Do you have the formula that I gave?
I think you gave it before I joined.
The formula is, just look up, you see what's in yellow right now?
Okay, okay.
That's the formula.
Thank you, sir.
Take it down and then tell me if you see how we arrived at it. So I'm having a conversation with you now, Don. The formula says the estimated overheads. Do you see your estimated overheads, Donna?
Yes, sir.
What are the figures?
$20,000 and $36,250.
Right, so when you add those up, what do you arrive at?
$56,250.
That's what you got when you added it up? Or are you seeing it somewhere?
No, sir. That's $56,250 when I had fabrication and painting.
Okay, great. Just checking, you know, because I tend to have errors in my question working. Okay, for students to find them. Okay, now divided by the estimated activity level. Now in this case, your question will define for you what the activity level is based on. And it's pretty obvious it's based on direct labor hours right here. So what are the direct labor hours that you have?
10,000 and 5,000.
When you add those up, what you get?
15,000.
Great. So now work out your predetermined rate based on that formula, please.
Just a second, sir.
Yes, I give you that.
56, 250 divided by 2. $3.75.
Okay, I want you to get spoiled, you say, Donna. So your answer can be $3.75. If you write that, you get 0. 17 students did back in 1952 when they sat the course. Because I didn't write $3.75 per direct labor hour.
Per direct labor hour, okay.
$3.75 per direct labor hour.
Okay, sir.
So just don't forget to include that per direct labor hour. If you're dividing dollars by something being your denominator, then your answer must be $3. It must be the dollars per whatever is in your denominator. And the denominator is the bottom part of the equation.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you're clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've calculated the predetermined overhead rate, and let's just go over that. That's based on the estimated overheads divided by the estimated activity level. Okay, not the actual, but the estimated. That gives you the predetermined overhead rate. Now, earlier on, we had picked up about the cost of the job. And the second part of part 1 asks you to compute the total cost of the job. It asks you to do that. So the total cost of the job will be made up of direct materials. Chantal Walters. Chantal Walters? Chantal? Chantal is absent this evening. I will so note it. We can't open our computers and create the impression that we're there when we're not there. That's not good. Giovanni?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the direct material? We're now trying to compute the cost of the job. So we will write it when we hear the figure. What's the cost of the job? So the first thing is what? What did I give you as the first component of the cost of the job?
Hold on, can you repeat that, sir?
What's the first component for the cost of the job?
The direct materials?
Direct materials, that's correct. Now tell me, go down, read the information on the job and tell me what's the cost of your direct materials.
$57, sir.
$57. So we're going to write direct materials, $57. Direct materials, $57. Okay, direct labor. Latanya, what is it for direct labor?
Sir, $45, sir.
$45. Notice that it passed through 2 departments and it spent 3 hours in fabrication and 1 hour in painting, and they paid the persons $45. More on that later on. So the direct labor will be $45. So we write that down as the second component of the 3 components. So direct materials, $57. Direct labor, $45. And then we're going to now look at Marsha. We're going to look at our overheads. Marsha, remind me of the formula that we use for overheads.
The actual activity level associated with the job multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate.
Right. So what's our actual activity level for the job associated with the job? We know that it's direct labor hours. How many direct labor hours did the job use?
One for painting and 3 for fabrication.
It used a total of
4.
4 direct labor hours. Are we seeing that, class? 3 in fabrication and 1 in painting.
Yes, sir.
3 in fabrication and 1 in painting. So that's a total of 4 direct labor hours. So the actual activity level multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate, and we calculated the predetermined overhead rate earlier on. What was that figure?
$3.75.
$3.75. So it will be 4 multiplied by $3.75, and that gives us 25.
No, sir.
What does it give you?
15.
Because you see it written there, how you know that it's right. In other words, class is
Yes, calculated, sir.
calculated. Don't, because you see it written down somewhere, assume it is right. There's 6 errors in last week's workings, and you won't discover them unless you actually work it and take the calculator and work each figure. Okay?
Sir,
Yes, yes, Mr.
overheads, do we give it in a dollar value? Do we give it a dollar value, sir?
The 15?
Yes, sir.
Anything multiplied by dollars would give you dollars. And you'll remember that the $3.75 is dollars.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So dollars multiplied by anything, your answer will be dollars. So the 57 from direct materials will be dollars. The 45 from direct labor will be dollars. And the 15 from overheads will be dollars. And therefore, when we add up the 57 plus 45 plus the 15, we'll arrive at a total cost of the job of $117. Is that right or is it wrong?
Yeah, it's 117, sir.
$117. I'm going to pause to take questions from anybody who might not be understanding what is happening. Belinda, you've been quiet all evening. You're usually the one of the noisiest people in the class.
Sir, I don't really want to add to your stress, but I did not see the paper when I went on. Something is wrong with my system.
So you're not looking at it?
I'm looking at your paper, so that's what I'm for.
82, 92, 102, 112.
Okay. Is there anybody else with that problem? Katharina, are you following us? Because I'm going to pause so that you can read it, because I want to come back to ask you about 7 questions, Belinda.
I'm following, sir. I'm following, sir.
Sure.
Read through the problem. We're pausing to facilitate people reading through the problem and answering the questions or coming along with the answer. Katharina, you're, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. We're going through, woe to those who open up computers and then pretend they're there and they're really not. Ramona, Dylan, are you with us?
Sure.
Just checking to see if you're there. Great. Titania Smythe or Smith?
And I'm here, sir.
Titania?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Daniel Coward?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, Colette Richards, are you there?
I'm here, but I'm not understanding how you got the total cost of the job.
So when would you have asked that question, Colette?
I was gonna ask you I was about to ask you.
Okay, make sure you know, because we're not listening to hard luck stories. We pass or we come back next year. Okay? So
Colette is one of our smartest people.
I'm just saying for all to hear.
Thanks, Miss OMT.
No, it's true.
Okay.
I'm vouching for you.
Colette, ask the question. Colette?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
You said you had a question, so ask it so I can answer.
I am not following how you got the total cost of the job.
Okay, what are the components of the cost? Do you have the notes with respect to that?
No. Oh, the 3 components of the cost. Okay, direct labor, direct material, and overheads. Oh, okay. I'm seeing now.
But, whereas you would see direct materials readily and direct labor readily, you're comfortable with how we computed overheads.
Yes, I saw how you did it with 1 hour for was it fabrication and 3 hours for the other one, and you times it by
1 hour for painting, 3 hours for fabrication. That's a total of 4 hours. And then divided by the predetermined overhead rate.
Yes, okay, I followed up to that point. All right, thank you, sir.
And then we added the 3 components of cost to arrive at your total cost.
Okay, thank you.
Sir?
Belinda, you looking at the paper now?
Sir?
Let me just...
Yes, sir?
Yes. Yeah, you're looking at the paper now, Belinda?
Yes, I'm looking at your paper.
Okay. Okay, so have you formulated your questions that you want to ask me?
I don't have a question. I'm following basically what you said.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Class, are we all there? Don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask now, you can ask me next year.
Sir, can you, sir?
Yes, who's speaking?
Donna.
Donna, go ahead.
Sir, can you go back to what you just added, the 3 figures? Because when I add it, I don't get 116.
No, that is possibly wrong. That was me doing a quick thing.
If you get 106, what you got, Donna?
117.
Okay. Okay. It pleases me when students can correct me. So I appreciate what you did a while ago. It's 117.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Are we all there, class? I don't want to move on and leave anybody behind. Okay. Let us now move on to part 2 of the question. Part 2 of the question says, compute the predetermined rates based on direct labor hours for each department. How many departments do you have, class?
2.
We have 2. We have fabrication and we have painting. So we're not going to combine, we're going to do a rate for each department. So fabrication would be how much, class? What are our overheads? What are the budgeted overheads or estimated? And those 2 words are used interchangeably, class. They're used interchangeably. So Because your formula saying budgeted, or you could see saying estimated, it means the same thing. What are my budgeted overheads for fabrication class?
$20,000.
$20,000.
Right? And what's the estimated overheads in fabrication?
$10,000, sir.
That's 20,000. It's the same thing you just asked us.
Sorry, same question I asked you. It means I need to go home now. Estimated overheads, $20,000, and the estimated activity level for fabrication is how much? Sorry.
$10,000.
$10,000 what?
Dollars. No, 10,000 labor hours.
Labor hours.
10,000 labor hours.
Okay, so let's give people the title now. So you're going to give the question its title.
No, you can't be that.
Yeah? So give it its title. So you're going to tell me labor hours or dollars. So for the activity level, it would be direct labor hours. So it's 10,000. So we divide that and we arrive at what? $2 per direct labor hour. Tell me about painting.
Painting is 36.
$36,250
Yes.
for the estimated overhead, and 5,000 labor hours for 5,000 labor hours for painting.
Yeah. And that gives you what? When you work that out, what they did?
36.
725.
You got?
725.
$7.25. You get zero like those students back in 1959.
Okay. $7.25.
Just like that?
Per direct.
Per labor hour.
Direct labor hour.
You have to be careful. The question is specific about the labor hours. It said direct labor hours.
Yes, a direct.
Okay. Because I could ask you the question if you tell me labor hours. What type of labor hours? Was it direct or indirect? So when the question is specific, you use back the terminology of the question.
Direct.
So you're going to say $7. And we like those students in 1959. Okay. So we're happy with that computation. Let's now move down to the working out. So class, there's something I want us to note. If we're not using a single overhead rate, and I want us to take a note, please, that another name for single overhead rate is a plant-wide rate. You got that, class? So if you see single overhead rate, it's one rate you're computing, so you're adding things together. Or they might say plant-wide rate, you're doing the same thing, you're adding things together. That make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure we have about 70 students in the class.
Yes, sir.
I'm only hearing one.
Yes, sir.
So plant-wide rate or single overhead rate, it's the same thing. Okay. So if it's not a plant-wide rate or a single overhead rate, then it's a departmental rate, which means that we're going to calculate rates for each department using the formula that I gave you. So any question?
Sir,
Okay, go ahead.
if it's not either, if it's not single overhead or if it's not plant-wide, it is departmental?
Departmental rates, departmental rates.
Okay.
You'll compute as many rates as you have departments. So in this case, we're going to be calculating two rates, $2 per direct labor hour and $7.25 per direct labor hour. That's two rates because we have two departments, namely fabrication and painting. The second part of the question, totally we're going to now calculate it using total cost of the job using departmental rates. Now, what it means is that our overheads will have two components to it. Once we use the resource of the department, the overheads will be reflected. The job passed through fabrication, where it spent 3 hours, and it passed through painting, where it spent 1 hour. So the job used the resources of those two departments. So those costs must be reflected in the overheads. So when we're computing the total cost of the job, again, we use our direct materials. We use our direct materials. We use our direct labor. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
So again, to compute the cost of the job, it will be direct materials, $57. Direct labor, $45. Overheads. Now we're going to have two components to overheads. Our activity level is direct labor hours. So we're going to be looking at the activity in the first one, fabrication. How many direct labor hours we use in fabrication?
3.
3. And what's the predetermined rate for fabrication?
$2 per
$2 per direct labor hour. So then, our overheads coming from fabrication will be $6. The actual activity level for the job multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate for the department, $2. So 3 times 2 is $6. Now, what will the dollar value of overheads be with respect to painting class? Using the same principle that we use for fabrication, we ended up with 6. What will our overheads be with respect to painting?
$7.25.
$7.25. That's Giovanni speaking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Giovanni, tell me, how did you arrive at $7.25? You are correct, but how you arrived at that?
All right, sir. So we used the $7.25 for the painting department, sir, and we times it by the direct activity level associated with the job, sir, which was the 1 hour given in the question, sir.
Which also relates to the painting department.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So 1 hour multiplied by $7.25 per direct labor hour would give you $7.25. So our overheads with respect to fabrication will be $6, and with respect to painting it will be $7.25. So our total overheads will be $13.25. Are we seeing that, everyone? $7.25. That's the total overheads. Class, can I hear you? I know I'm speaking, but I don't know if people are understanding what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so you can appreciate that I would want to hear from you. I don't want to go on and leave anybody behind. Okay, so our overheads will be $13.25, $6 attributed to fabrication, and $7.25 attributed to painting. That's a total of $13.25. But then remember, we also have to account for direct materials and direct labor. And you will remember that the direct materials was $57, direct labor $45. And of course, our overheads will be $13.25. So when we calculate that, I think we should arrive at $115.25. I'm not sure. Please just check and let me know.
Yes, sir.
16.
Pardon? Someone said something a while ago. Are we comfortable with $115.25, class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Can I move on? What was the third question asked of your class?
Which one of the overhead rates they should use?
Yeah.
Whether the plant-wide or departmental?
Okay. Which one do you think I should use?
We're gonna use this to price the product, right, sir?
Pardon?
This is to be used to price the product, right?
Yes, it's going to be used to price the product.
So I would say use the higher off to ensure that you account for your costs fully.
So you're saying that the lower one would not count for your costs fully?
No, I was going to answer that question before I saw it there. Which one is best? I'm not so sure. But I'd say if you're pricing stuff, you'd want to use a higher figure to maximize on your markup.
That's it.
The $117 and the $115.25 is not your selling price, you know. You appreciate
So,
that?
yeah, but it's a base that you're gonna use to work out your selling price, right?
But we have to be careful about the principle. To use the higher figure, then if we use a higher figure, we're going to have the higher selling price.
May not make you competitive.
But it might not make it competitive, so we have to be careful.
Right, so that's the thing.
So it wouldn't be wise, especially if we're in a competitive environment, to use the higher price.
But then you might underprice your product.
You mean if you don't use a higher price?
Right.
Competitive. What will happen, you know, in most situations, especially if you're in a competitive environment, is that people buy more of your product. All other things being equal and constant, meaning that the quality of your product is good. The lower price will mean that people the demand for your product will be greater.
So you'll be going more for volume then, to attain your profitability.
Volume rather than by price.
Okay. So we can use either one depending on the market we're in then.
Okay, now it's going to be specific to this question. And then there's an overarching principle that I'm going to get into later on about which one is better. Okay, so in this case, in this example, it would be best to use the departmental rates, because the departmental rates reflects in your overheads. Departmental rates reflect in your overheads only the cost of the resources used in a particular department. What do I mean by that? This job passed through fabrication and it passed through painting. But suppose we didn't use any of painting, or we didn't use any of fabrication. What would have happened? If we use a single or a plant-wide overhead rate, we would have calculated the costs of fabrication and painting. We'd have combined them, divided by the activity levels from the two departments, and we'd have arrived at $3.75. And what would be happening in our overheads is that we'd be reflecting in our overheads the cost of a department that the job did not pass through. That's the danger of using a plant-wide overhead rate. Let me say that again. How did we arrive at the $3.75? We arrived at it by combining the cost of fabrication and painting, did we not? We combined the $20,000 plus the $36,250. And then we divided that now by the 10,000 direct labor hours plus the 5,000 direct labor hours. Didn't we do that?
Yes, sir.
And that gave us $3.75. But just think about what makes up that $3.75 per direct labor. It's the costs associated with fabrication and the costs associated with painting. And then we would put that into our overheads. Whatever our activity level is, we'd have then multiplied by $3.75. Now that $3.75 mirrors work in fabrication and work in painting. Suppose the question had said that the direct labor hours is just made up of 3 hours in fabrication and nothing in painting. Do you realize that what would our overheads be equal to?
$6.
No, assuming a single overhead rate.
Oh,
No, let's assume a single overhead rate first. Let's assume a single overhead rate.
oh. It will be 3 times $3.75.
3 times $3.75.
Should be $11.25.
That would be $11.25 plus the 102, which would give you $113.25.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's now go down to plant-wide. Sorry, let's now assume that we. Okay, let's go back to that computation. Let's go back to that computation where we got $113.25. Did we using that example, did we use any of the resources in painting in the job?
No.
No. Because it's only based on my example, we only use 3 hours in fabrication. We didn't use anything in painting. But yet, when we get down to overheads, we have put in overheads the cost, some costs from painting. Because how did we get the $3.75? It has in it some cost from painting.
Sir, what example is that?
The $3.75, it includes painting and fabrication. The cost of painting and fabrication were put together to compute the overhead, the predetermined overhead rate. But if the job never passed through painting, should the overheads mirror? It will mirror it if we use a single overhead rate. If we use departmental rates, if you don't pass through a department, the overheads will not mirror those costs. It will only mirror the costs of the department. You hear me, class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to know because I got to know that the internet is unstable. So I just want to know if you're hearing me. Class, what would work out for me, please? What my cost would be if we use departmental rates. What would the costs be if we use departmental rates? And we spent 3 hours in fabrication and no time in painting. Work out the cost of the job. Direct materials is $57. Direct labor is $45. What would my overheads be? And what would the total cost of the job be if I spend 3 hours in fabrication and no time in painting? Calculate the cost of the job using departmental rates. Three hours in fabrication and no time in paint. Work that out for me, please.
Sir, would it be $113.25?
Would it be what?
$113.25.
Walk us through how you arrived at that figure.
Excuse me?
Walk us through how you arrived at that figure.
All right, so overheads
We're
would
using
be,
departmental rates, remember?
yes, sir. But if we did 3 hours in fabrication,
yes,
that would be 3 hours times $3.75.
no,
No.
$3.75 is arrived at when we use a plant-wide rate. And
Oh,
we use
okay.
departmental rates.
Okay. Also, it would be three hours times $2.
Sir, I think I get back the same 115.25
Remember, we did not use any time in painting. How many hours I said we used in fabrication?
3.
And what did I say about painting?
We use no hours in painting.
So, if you use no hours in painting, how can you get overhead? How could you come back to $115.25?
108, sir.
It would be 108.
They wouldn't include the painting. Understood, sir.
We didn't use any resources from painting, so we don't have any hours used for painting.
Understood.
So when we use departmental rates, the message is that we only include in the cost of the job the resources used. Our cost should reflect resources used, the cost of resources used. So if we don't use a particular cost, we ought not to reflect anything from that department in the cost of the job. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
That is why when I skewed my example a while ago, our overheads would have to be different. We couldn't pick up 1 hour because I told you that we didn't use any resources from the painting department. We use 3 hours from fabrication. We're using departmental rates. So we look at the hours in fabrication and we associate it, meaning multiply it by the hours, the rate that relates to fabrication. And because we use 0 hours in painting, then really it would have been 0 times 7.25. And you and I know that 0 times anything is equal to what?
0.
0.
And as a result of that, what we're saying is that the cost of the job using departmental rates will not mirror the cost of a department, will not mirror the cost of a department that the job did not pass through.
Sir, I still don't think I understand question 3, sir. I still don't think I understand it.
Okay, what is eluding? Eh? What's eluding? Go ahead.
I don't know. As it relates to so the question states if we should use plant-wide overhead rate or department overhead rate. Explain.
We should use, okay, based on what I'm saying, which one do you think we should use? Based on the people that I've elaborated on, which one do you think we should use?
Sir, the one for the department, sir?
Departmental, yes. We should use departmental because departmental ensures that only the resources used gets in the job. Departmental don't assume, don't guarantee that. The plant-wide rate don't guarantee that.
Oh.
If we had used a plant-wide rate, then we'd have had, as our overheads, if we didn't use the painting department, what would be our overheads? 3 times?
Can you repeat that question, sir?
If we didn't use any resources from painting, but we used that plant-wide rate, what would our overheads be?
Sir, the 3.275 times the 3 hours for fabrication?
3 hours times, I hear it's 3.275?
Yes, sir.
I don't know where that figure came from. You mean 3.75?
Yeah, sorry, 75. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. 75.
Yeah, great, yes. If we're using plant-wide rate, then the only rate that we're working with is 3.75 times 3. Because that's the only hours that we use. We didn't use the 1 hour in fabrication. We used the we didn't use the 1 hour in painting. So we couldn't account for that 1 hour to make it 4. We only use 3 hours. And if we're using a plant-wide rate, then the only applicable rate would have been $3.75. But what makes up that $3.75? You realize it's made up of some of the costs of painting?
Yes, sir.
And do we use any resources in painting?
Literally, sir?
Or if we didn't, even if we didn't use it, and we were using a plant-wide rate, we'd still be reflecting some of the costs of painting in our job.
Yes, sir.
And so,
yeah, that's true.
Generally speaking, a plant-wide rate is not the best rate to use because there's a possibility that you can mirror in the cost of your job resources that you didn't use at all.
Understood, sir.
When you use a departmental rate, then you only reflect the cost of that department in your overheads if you've used it. The principle is that the cost of a job must reflect the resources used to make the job. That's not guaranteed when you use a plant-wide rate. That's how there must be a strong correlation between resources used and the cost of those resources in the job. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But people still use this rate anyway.
The plant-wide rate. Yes, people use the plant-wide rate. It's okay to use it if you're not doing jobs that vary. You know, when we do customized work, if we're producing what we call homogeneous products that pass through all departments, then you can use a single overhead rate. But when we're doing different types of jobs, I specify that I want you to do something and it might not involve painting, and another job involves painting. Then we're producing different products that's calling for different resources. So it is best in such a case that we don't use a standard rate that draws on the resources of all departments and include it in the cost of the job. A customized job is the one that is done according to the specification of the customer. A homogenized product is one that is done in a sameness. There's a sameness to it.
So it has its place then.
So all jobs would pass through the same departments in a homogenized setting. Now, if you're in a customized setting, you ever hear them talk about a custom-built car?
Yes, sir.
Custom-built car is one that calls on, it's based on what the customer wants. It's built to specification, and that is what the customer specifies. So it might call for more of the resources of one department and no resources of another department. So what we're saying is that if a particular product, and it is possible that when we're doing customized products, that some of the services of a department might not be required because the customer specified that they don't want X or Y. I'm just thinking about, I think it's Westminster Abbey in England or National Cathedral in Washington. Those two churches, they don't have any paint on it, you know. So they wouldn't pass through a painting department at all. They would pass through other departments if somebody had a contract to build it. But it wouldn't pass through the painting department. So why should the cost of the painting department be mirrored in the cost of the job to construct the Westminster Abbey or the National Cathedral in Washington? If it didn't pass through the painting department, why should the cost of painting be reflected in the job? Which is what happens when you use a single overhead rate or a plant-wide rate. It combines the costs of all the departments and we use it to calculate a rate, which we then use to compute overheads. $3.75 includes the cost of painting. And maybe the job didn't use painting at all. Or $3.75 includes the cost of fabrication. And if it didn't use fabrication, but we're using a plant-wide rate, it automatically reflects the cost of the one that it didn't use in it. So the principle is, even though it uses the two departments, the principle is that departmental rates reflect a fair use of resources in the product, in the making of the product. Okay, class. I want to expose you now to the overhead variance. And the overhead variance can be under-applied or over-applied. Take some notes from me, please. Class, are you hearing me?
Can you repeat what you just said, sir?
I want to give you a formula for overhead variance.
Okay, sure.
Overhead variance is equal to actual overheads minus applied overheads. Actual overheads minus applied overheads. actual overheads minus applied overheads. Applied overheads is equal to actual activity level multiplied by predetermined overhead rate. Let me give you an example to see how well you fare with this. Okay, so you have two departments. You have two departments, class. You have department A and you have department B. And your budgeted overheads in department A, you have $50,000. And in department B, you have $250,000. Department A, $50,000. And in department B, $250,000. Okay, that's your budgeted overheads. Your actual overheads. $55,000 in department A and $260,000 in department B. Okay. Your actual activity level. Actual activity level. It's based on direct labor hours. Based on direct labor hours. 25,500 for department A and 4,500 for department B. That's your actual activity level. Now your estimated activity, sorry.
All right, I was going to ask you to repeat those figures, but I see them on.
Yes. Those are direct labor hours. Now let us look at our estimated direct labor hours. Let's look at estimated direct labor hours. For department A, it's 25,000 labor hours. And for department B, it's 5,000 direct labor hours. So now calculate the overhead variance, assuming that the company uses a single overhead rate. Calculate the overhead variance, assuming that the company uses a single overhead rate. Remember that your overhead variance is equal to actual overheads minus applied overheads. And the applied overheads is equal to actual activity level multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate. Okay, so I'll give you time to just work that out, and then we're going to reconvene.
Sir, can you scroll up on the question fully, sir? Please.
Okay. Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. still working, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, continue.
Finish, sir.
We all finished, class? Class, can I get a response?
Yes, sir.
How many of us are finished? I'm not hearing from students.
Sir, have a figure.
Pardon?
Have a figure waiting.
I'm not hearing. I heard some about waiting.
Yeah, well, I have a figure, but we're waiting, sir, to see if we're right.
Okay, good. Okay, so let me ask the question. What's the formula for overhead variance? That's what I asked you to calculate. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the formula for the overhead variance?
Actual overhead minus applied. Actual overheads minus applied overheads.
Actual overheads minus applied overheads. Great. Let's now take the formula and break it down. What's my actual overheads equal to?
300,000, sir.
We agree with that, class? 300,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go back to the question that was given to you. Where do we get our actual overhead information from? How much is the actual overheads for Department A?
55,000.
55,000? And how much is it for Department B?
260,000.
260,000. When we add those two, what do we get?
315,000.
So our actual overheads will be 315,000. No, the applied overheads. We need two things to get our applied overheads. We need the actual activity level, and we need to multiply it by our predetermined overhead rate.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is our predetermined overhead rate equal to? Tell me about that formula. The predetermined overhead rate. It's equal to what?
$10 per direct hour, sir.
How did we get that figure?
Well, what I did, sir, was that I added both the estimated overhead and divided by the estimated direct labor hours, sir.
Okay, so tell me what is your estimated overheads for Department A and for Department B?
For Department A, the estimated overhead is 50,000, and for Department B, the estimated overhead is $25,000.
25,000?
No, sorry, 250,000, sir. Sorry.
That's right. So that gives you how much?
300,000, sir.
300,000. And then we're going to divide that by what?
The estimated direct labor hours, sir.
Okay, for A it is how much?
$25,000.
And for B, 25,000?
Direct labor hours.
And for B it is?
5,000 direct labor hours.
So that gives you a total of?
30,000 direct labor hours.
Okay, so it's $300,000 divided by 30,000 direct labor hours. And that gives us a result of?
$10 per direct labor hour.
$10 per direct labor hour. Let me pause a while because I hear one student leading and I want to know that the other students are behind, even if they're not speaking, that they're following. Class, are you following the discussion so far? Is there
Yes, sir.
Following it?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Okay, nobody with a question? Okay, let's press on. Okay, so our predetermined overhead rate is $10 per direct labor hour. Tell me now about what we're going to multiply this by to get the applied overheads.
To get the applied overheads, you need to multiply the predetermined rate by the actual activity levels.
Right. Now tell me, what is the actual activity level? Tell me what it is for department A and what it is for department B.
For department A, it's 25,500 direct labor hours. And for department B, it's 4,500 direct labor hours.
That's correct. So we're looking at a total of
30,000, sir. Direct labor hours.
That's right. And we're multiplying that by
$10 per direct labor hours.
And that gives us
300,000.
Labor. Oh, okay. 300,000 what, sir?
Dollars, sir.
$300,000. So then we're going to put it in the formula where we have where we had this 315,000. We're going to now have minus 300,000. We'd written 315,000 somewhere dollars, and that was our actual overheads. Yes. And we're going to subtract from that the applied overheads, which is $300,000. Actual overheads minus applied overheads is equal to the overhead variance. Let's fill in our figures now. That is $315,000 minus $300,000, and that's equal to $15,000. Now we want to put something in brackets, and we're going to put, let me teach you a lesson and then I'm going to ask you to fill that in. The overhead variance will be either, under applied or over applied. The variance will be under applied when the applied overheads are less than the actual overheads. And the variance will be over applied when the applied overheads are greater than the actual overheads. Okay, so we have 15,000 right there. What is this 15,000 going to be, class? Will it be under applied or over applied?
Under applied.
It will be under applied because the applied overheads, 300,000, it's less than the actual overheads. So we will put in brackets under applied. Why? Because the applied overheads are less than the actual overheads. If it were the other way around, our variance would be over applied, and we put that in brackets. Are there any questions, class? Okay, let's just There's a question that was sent it to Ms. Thomas, sent it to Tricia Robinson. And that question was Bayshore. We're going to be working that one next week. We're not finished this one quite yet. Well, you have the notes, you have the supporting notes with respect to this question.
Sir, can you go over how you got the actual activity level?
The actual activity level. The question gave it to you. Look for it in your notes, please. Look for it in the question itself. We see it being highlighted now.
So,
they're in yellow.
Right.
Actual activity level based on direct labor hours, 25,500 in Department A, and in Department B, 4,500. When you add them together, what did you get?
29,500.
Yes. I didn't ask you to use your head, use your calculator. If you
The
calculate
actual activity level?
Yes.
So the 25,000, oh, I wrote down the wrong figure. That is why I was wondering how you got it.
Okay. When you corrected, do you get 30,000?
Oh, I wrote down 4,500 and 25,000. So I was wondering how you got the 30,000.
It's 25. Okay, so you're on track.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, can you scroll back down, please? To the notes. Yes.
Are you seeing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have another part of the question. What does the other part of the question say?
Explain how overhead.
No, overhead is assigned to production when a predetermined overhead rate is used. Can somebody answer that? We've been doing that all evening, haven't we? How do we assign our overheads to the cost when we have a predetermined overhead rate? What would we say? Class, I'm waiting on you. We've been doing it. Verbalize what we've been doing all evening. Maybe you might want to jot your thoughts down and then I'll call on some students. Anybody care to put forward an idea? Let's hear it. Hello? How have we been recognizing our overheads? Is it not by, first of all, identifying the relevant or the pertinent activity level? And we're talking about the actual activity level. And then we multiply it by the predetermined overhead rate. And that gives us the applied overheads, which we add to the cost of direct materials and direct labor. Isn't that what we've been doing all evening class?
Yes, sir.
That's what we've been doing. The actual activity level multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate. You might want to, in a response, speak to how you arrive at the predetermined overhead rate. It's recognizing your budgeted overheads and dividing it by the budgeted activity level. And that would give you the predetermined overhead rate. So,
could you repeat that?
Yes, you look at your predetermined overhead rate, and we're just talking about how you arrived at it. The predetermined overhead rate is the budgeted overheads divided by the budgeted activity level. That's how we'd have arrived at our predetermined overhead rate. That's the predetermined overhead rate, and that is then multiplied by the actual activity level. And that's how the overheads are then reflected as a part of the cost of production. When we compute that, we add it to the cost of direct materials and direct labor. Okay, class, so we're going to work another question. You have the question given to you already, so you have that in advance. And then I will also send a question relating to another topic next week as well, but we're going to focus on working base shore, which you have already. Just to say that for your own practice, and I hope you're practicing now, don't wait till the last minute. And I hope you've also worked out your leave with your workplace for exams. I hope you've worked that out. You need study time, and of course you need time on the day to sit the exams. Well, it might not be that. It might be in the evening, but you need preparation time. So please work that out with your bosses. And of course, there are past papers on the site that you can use to practice as well. So there's no reason why I should be looking in your face next year. So use the time wisely. Woe to those who have problems and you're not saying it. Speak your mind so that you might find life. Those of us with problems, it doesn't make any sense you telling me that you weren't understanding in December or late November. I want to hear with each topic. It means you're not doing any work if you're not understanding and you're not speaking. Make sure that each week you review and you ask questions at the beginning of the class. Yes, who's asking a question now?
Sasha Lee.
Yes, please.
Sir, for the final exam, will it be something that you will take home and complete and upload, or will it be something timed on Orville to log on for a particular timing to complete it.
Well, I like that idea because I hear that students discuss exams. So I like something where you're under the whip. I like.
Okay.
Because you would agree that students discuss the exams with their friends, don't it?
Sir, no we don't.
Any other questions? I'm going to dismiss you with my blessing. We know what we have to do. Woe to those who aren't doing the work. Failure will be their lot, and those who are working, they will drink deeply from the cup of success. The choice is yours where you want to be on that day of atonement. Choose wisdom, class, so that you might live. On this note, I'm going to bring the class to an end. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, sir.
Good evening, sir. Bye.
Sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, then, yes.
Hi, sir.
Okay.